Hello, everybody. You're listening to another episode of Podcasting Over PSP.
It's been a while since we've recorded one of these.
Yeah, we were doing them really consistently for a minute there, and then we just got busy for like most of the month, which is why I, wanted to record them way ahead of themselves, because like it's ambitious to say you're going to release a podcast twice a week if you just so happen to have time for it, for long enough for you to record like 5 episodes, and you feel like, oh yeah, we're recording this so fast, we'll be able to just have this consistently
we have a head
come
start, out, right?
But I couldn't even find time to edit the episodes that we had in time for them to come out on the 3-day, one every 3-day schedule. So they immediately fell behind. But
yeah,
we had
and I mean, it's kind of
hard
to edit them all at the same time, too, because it's kind of like a lot to listen to. These are kind of long.
Well, and the thing is that when I started doing this, I didn't intend to necessarily listen to them back, because I don't usually do that for podcasts. Like, there have been times where I've tried, but it's just a difference of a few hours, between, like, what you can move on to doing, like, what do you have time for. Like, it's nice to have the time to really go all in on making a podcast good. But, like, if you're trying to release the podcast in just, like, so you have something coming out while you're working on something else, like homework, for instance, in your case, not that, like, you are obligated to release any content necessarily, but, like,
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to...
It's the most you could contribute to content with me, essentially.
Consistently, yeah. I, just with the way things are now, it's really hard for me to make a commitment to say that I'll even have, several hours a week free to record things. And I think we kind of gotten away from doing the live streams, and this has kind of been a supplement for it.
I mean, I had just kind of, without even really realizing it, put a lot of responsibility on you towards my channel's content, and it was because of the fact that it was nothing that was, like, the main, what I consider my main content is always just stuff that I make by myself, and, like, there's lots of stuff that the two of us do together that's, like, appeals to a lot of people who are in my core fan base, but, like, it doesn't contribute to, like, the main thrust of my viewership or, like, people who are paying for my Patreon, It's, like, more of a really nice supplementary material for certain categories of people who do pledge, which might get them to increase it, which is why it's always good for me to have, like, a very multi-dimensional content. But, like, I had you editing Manga Monday as a way of having the time to do it, to bring it back, because I only wanted to bring it back if it was going to be edited, and, you were capable of editing it well. So it was like, yeah, I can just hand these off to you, and it was just enough work for me to keep doing it, and for you to keep doing it. But then you started school, and there was, like, just not the time anymore, because you have a ton of fucking homework.
Also on top of my computer dying and making me fall behind.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. That was even...
that
was particularly what set back the episode, so that it was going to be late one way or another. The one that would have been next. And then it was, like, by the time you got your computer, classes had come into full swing, and it was, like... They're just, like, you kept thinking you would have, like, an opportunity to make time for it, and that just chance never came because the homework just kept coming.
Yeah, it's interesting because you go from having lots of free time on your hands to where you're, like, eager to fill it with, let's make content. Like, this is one of my favorite things to do, and I feel good doing it, and people like it, to, I just consistently don't have time to fill my schedule with all of these things, and it sucks because I feel, I feel kind of guilty that I took on more than I can chew. But another interesting thing that, like, has been added to my life by, focusing so much on school, because I'm taking classes online, and I've said this in other places, I'm sure, but, like, taking online classes is often more work than you would normally get if you went in person. Just because you're expected to, like, prove that you understand the material being taught to you, whereas in class you might have to sit through a lecture for an hour a couple times a week.
Right.
In class, you basically have to do the lecture yourself, and usually that just requires like lots of reading and lots of like writing assignments and discussion posts and stuff. But just so much of my time and the bandwidth of my mind has just been consumed by just what I've been learning about in school, which isn't really interesting or applicable to anything.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, like, you know, I'm taking classes on media literacy and stuff, and that's kind of what this job is for you, as you analyze media. Mm-hmm. And some of those skills, like, you know, transfer over. But I just feel like I really have a lot less to add to discussions because my life has been so much, like, has been a lot more boring.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what happens if you fall into an area where all you're doing is, like, work. I mean, I used to always have this problem with both hanging out with my friends and doing, like, certain podcasts and stuff where people would be like, so, what's going on? And it's like, well, everything that's been going on with me is represented in content online, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, if I'm meeting with somebody who I know doesn't watch my videos, who's a friend of mine, then I might explain some of it to them, or like just kind of I might just think I won't be able to explain what's been going on online because it's just so complicated, and you're not going to want to have to listen to me give this long ass fucking explanation of what the fuck I'm talking about, you know? Like, let's say I were to tell somebody asks like, hey, what's been going on, man? You know, like one of my back home friends, you know? Mm-hmm. And let's say that this was right after I had gone on the Dick Show live, you know?
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, what's been going on with you, man? And I'd be like, oh, you know, me and my fiance, whom you've never met, we just took a trip to LA because my mom found her real granddad and moved to LA to live with him. Not her real dad, I meant to say. My real granddad. My mom found her real dad, not knowing who he was, for the 54 years of her life, I think. Something like that. She found out who he was. He's 80. My parents moved in with him in Huntington Beach. Across the fucking country. And so, me and my fiance, who I met on the internet through my job,
basically you're gonna need a whole podcast to catch this person up.
Exactly.
You should just be like, hey man, I can't tell you to you. I should just record a podcast.
The thing is that I already have podcasts where I've talked about all this to the internet and to my friends who I know from the internet. And so when it comes to, like, I'm going to tell you about it, it's like, not only do I know you don't care and don't want to hear this hour and a half long story being dropped on you out of the blue,
right,
when we could just go do something, you know, but, like, not only that, but I've already told it before. So I'm not even interested in doing it. It's not going to be fun or cathartic for me unless I can put a really unique spin on it, you know. Or if I know you're interested, if I know you really are interested, I will work through the details in my mind to figure out which parts are most interesting. I will try to cut this story down to its bare essentials. I'm a good storyteller. It's what I get paid to do. But, you know.
Right, but when most people text you like, hey man, what's up? Like, they're expecting.
What the fuck do you mean?
They're
what's
expecting
up?
you to just,
Shut
like,
up.
You know, to
I
say
do
something
not
real
respond to that.
Yeah, me neither, because
I will not
it's such
respond
a
to,
lazy
hey, man,
way
what's up?
to kind of like keep up with somebody.
Oh yeah.
It's never worked for me in the past. Like, you know, I have had friends and stuff from college that I've wanted to keep up with, wanted to, like, you know, keep a relationship with, and it just gets to the point where, like, unless you make time out of your day for these relationships, they're just not gonna work. Like, your lives get so different. You're no longer, like, in the same town or, like, going to the same place or working the same place. You have nothing, like, no common ground to base your, like, stories off of. It just, I don't know. It's really funny when people are like, oh, hey man, what's up? Because that's something that I used to get a lot, like, after going out of college or getting out of high school. Like, you know, it'll be a couple of months and a friend's message will pop up in your inbox But, like, the older you get, the less that happens. Because I
Yeah.
think people realize that that's, like, just not a way to keep up with people.
No.
Like, in the past, people used to have to write full-on letters to,
Right,
like,
exactly.
to communicate with
You
people.
need correspondence, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, there are some people who, like, more so than, like, hey man, what's up? If there's somebody who I used to talk to, like, years ago, and they write me, like, a long-ass email, like, oh, hey man, you know, been thinking about you, you know, I fucking, this is what's going on with me, and I was interested in, you know, maybe meeting up sometime because we happen to have, like, we're both going to this convention, and maybe we can have a conversation or something, and, you know, maintain some level of connection because we have mutual interests and have had good conversations in the past, you know?
Yeah, something to provide some kind of common ground between
Yeah.
the two of you. Just like, hey, what's up is never gonna get a response.
No.
Just the other day, some, like, kid from college who, like, I don't know, just messaged me, hey. And it's like, I haven't talked to you in, like, 3 years, dude. I'm not interested. Like, we weren't even friends in college, and I have a fiance. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've even went through the effort of, like, checking that information before
Right.
messaging me.
Yeah, like, hey, what's up? I'm like,
My life is completely...
Yeah,
I'm a
there's
completely different
there's
person.
no similarity between what you knew about me before and
3
what is
years
true
have
about
passed,
me now.
dude. All of the cells in my body have died from
Yeah,
when you knew
I'm like
me.
literally a physically different fucking person. Oh my god, that's fucking hilarious. Where the fuck is this? Oh, it's that thing. Oh, there it goes. Fuck, what was I thinking about?
You're
Shit,
talking about not having time, man.
not having time. That's not what we were talking
I
about.
have no idea. We were talking about this not being our streams, not live streaming.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that.
Because I've been I've been doing a lot of homework, and just as background noise, I've been listening to the Ralph Retort, which he streams every single weekday for like 3 hours.
You know you're going to get shit for the fact that you listen to the Ralph Retort, right?
I don't care. What the fuck do you want me to listen to? Destiny? Like, fuck you. I can listen to whatever I want. You can listen to whatever you want. I like the fact that I can listen to it and not pay attention to it for the most part.
Right. I like Ralph's voice.
Yeah, I do too. It's like an ASMR experience.
Well, he's just such a, like, jolly guy. Like, for being a shitlord, he's very polite and, you know, like, accommodating to his guests. Like, he's very happy to have people on his show, you know?
Yes.
I went on there just to make fun of Monkey Jones.
And I mean,
which reminds me of that thing I wrote down in that book.
Oh my god.
You should bring that up and we could talk about
fuck,
that
where
after
isn't
you're
this
done
one
with
right?
whatever you were saying.
How long ago was that?
It was like way back when we were doing these before. Because I got...
Is it the drama about to walk the greatest?
Yes,
Okay.
that the tightrope.
I have it.
We teased it in an earlier episode, or possibly
I'll
the
read it
last
to you.
episode, which means I wrote it down before the last
This
episode.
is from a while ago. It's from 2 grocery lists before, so that tells you.
on the same page as the grocery list. This is a true married podcast now. Oh boy.
I'm about to walk the greatest tightrope of drama in YouTube history. If I can get away with saying this and not starting any drama, I am a genius and the greatest writer ever. I am telling you this not as a human being, but as a narrative writer. Analyze that sentence.
I don't know what the fuck I was talking about. That is so pretentious it hurts. What the fuck is going on?
That's what you told me to write.
Yeah, well, you know, when I get really high, I get really up into my own fucking mind. I know it had something to do with monkey drama and me going on the Ralph Retort. I think I was basically going to explain that that when I went on that show, I deliberately did not address it really to anybody. Like, I did not post about it on Twitter.
I mean, I don't think a lot of people listen to Ralph's show. Like, it might...
No.
I mean, it gets like 1,000 views. That's like a substantial,
Here's
I guess.
why. Because this is a weird... When you work on the internet, you really have to think about what am I trying to convey as my personal narrative, right? Like, what's the stance I'm taking? How am I, like, responding to what's going on in the culture, you know? And with the people around me who I've associated with. You kind of have to either decide to, like, very publicly have no stance when you get asked about it, or, like, ignore all... Like, okay, there are a lot of people who have probably been involved with Monkey Jones who will not answer questions about Monkey Jones. I think Asterios might be one of those people.
Yeah.
You know, despite having worked with him very closely.
Oh, we gotta talk about that.
Oh my god. I mean, if we do that, then this is just a drama podcast. And this will end up fucking on, like, the Dick Show subreddit or something, and I'm gonna get dragged into Asterios drama if that happens.
Weren't you already dragged in?
Well, I put myself in there a little bit, but I don't think I've been... Well, anyway. So what happened? This is probably... To some people, we're speaking in Moon right now. They're like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? I don't know what any of this is. I just watched Digibro. I just like anime. I like that you guys talked about Accelerator a couple episodes ago, because I watched that show and I thought it was cool. But now you're talking about some internet drama. I'm not into internet. I don't know what the fuck's going on. All right. Look.
Trust me, you're into internet drama. You just haven't been awoken yet.
I should post that fucking vlog I recorded. I literally have been just, like, recording shit and forgetting about it. I fucking made this video that's, like, 30 minutes long of me explaining how lolcows and internet drama are, like, the new form of reality TV, but they're much better because they're real. So it's not the same as reality TV. It's actual reality, which makes it way more interesting.
I mean, it's real up to a certain point because, like, the big name YouTubers, like, all that shit's manufactured.
Too. Yeah. Oh, I mean, a lot of the big drama is manufactured, but there's tons of real drama, and it's been around for longer than the fake drama.
Yeah, and I mean, you as a viewer can have an impact on these people's lives, which is kind of like in reality TV, there's a strict line between, like, you know, this is just on TV. But I do still think, like...
And that's why, like, call-outs are such a thing, because, like... You know, sometimes people are doing fucked up things, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, shit, we can do something about that. We don't have to all keep quiet about it like Hollywood does, you know? We can out our people who are doing fucked up shit in our community, you know? So, like...
But then that encourages people to do even more fucked up shit.
Well, it encourages some people to fake doing fucked up shit.
Yeah.
It encourages people to create drama. And it also encourages people to try to trap people in doing fucked up shit or being, you know, like a lolcow or something just because they want to have somebody to talk about, you know? Mm-hmm. Because it perpetuates the industry and the fun of this particular memery, you know? But it's like... It's such an interesting blend of human elements that it's hard for me to look away from, you know? I mean, I don't pay attention to the manufactured, more popular drama stuff. But if it's in circles surrounding me, and there's plenty of it in circles surrounding me, then of course I'm interested in keeping track of it. And, you know, I'm a participant in the Dick Show, which is pretty much built on drama, and, like, massive scale drama. You know, $400,000 lawsuit drama, and, I'm now being mentioned by the guy who started that lawsuit, you know? Somebody who I've just been a fan of since I was, like, a teenager. So, in a negative light, to say the least. So, anyway, yeah, I'm deeply embroiled into some internet drama, you know? But I really don't want my content to be defined by internet drama. Like, I really don't want that to be, like, front page Digibro channel content unless it's in the package of, like, being told as an interesting story in a podcast or Let's Play, you know? Because I can tell my side of the story and just let you kind of make your own judgments and have your own opinions about the situation, but understand why I have mine, you know? And I am interested in, like, putting on blast people who I feel like have wronged me in some way, you know? Like, so it's like, it's like I want you to be making informed, like when you're judging this person's character in relationship to what they do in other situations, consider the input of my perspective. You know, here's my observations on the character of these people, and you can let that inform your decision about how you feel about the actions you disagree with that they take. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like if I talk about, because obviously I've been throwing shade at Mother's Basement like crazy forever because it's fucking hilarious, and so many people agree with it that it makes it funnier.
Oh boy, like, it's kind of sad. Like, his channel is under the looming threat of being, you know, taken down because he has had copyright strikes. But like, no big YouTubers are really coming to his aid, and I think it's because he has kind of.
I mean, what aid is there to come to? You fucking submit your things to YouTube, and they go through where they don't. You know, I've had my channel taken down 3 fucking times.
I know, but like, whenever this happens, like, people usually go 2 routes. They try to signal boost their cause. They will make like huge posts online and to social media.
That's just because they're hoping they'll fucking get you to back their Patreon while they
fucking
put the channels down.
Or they just like, you know, are silent about it, kind of like you were when it happened earlier, because it's just kind of like a, you know,
I mean,
it's a hazard of the job.
Look, like I have a huge Patreon. I don't really rely on my YouTube ad revenue because it's unreliable, and it always has been.
Yeah.
They've been fucking me over since day one of having my channel up. This is just a fact of life to me. And like when I see people who get big and then they make a huge fucking stink about the channel getting taken down, it's like I have no sympathy. I've had it happen to me 3 fucking times.
No, and especially if you're not like backing up your videos.
And I mean, there's some circumstances that are extreme. Like I think Monkey Jones' situation was really fucking bizarre and extreme. You know, where like it seemed like there was more to that than just, you know, copyright strikes.
But if you're using copyrighted material, like the chance always exists that you can get striked.
Right. And you just, like, you gotta understand...
The 10-second rule does not make you, like, exempt.
It's just it's basically like a fucking natural disaster you need to be... It's like you're living in a hurricane zone, you know? Yeah. You're living in a place where the systems are not good enough to fucking manage your career because there's not humans at the fucking helm of this shit. Yeah, so you need to it's fucking robots.
Like, backups and be prepared and, like, have a place to fall back on.
You need to fucking have... And most of these people probably do, but it is a good idea to talk about what's happening to you because people will help you out. They'll make sure that if you're losing out on $1,000 in ad revenue a month, or, you know, in the case of somebody like Jeff who's relying on ad revenue, probably like fucking, you know, 12 grand in ad revenue a month or something if he's putting out, oh my god, it's this fucking boss again.
Oh boy, it's the herpes monster.
How do you have to fight this thing so many fucking times in this game? Anyway, yeah, like, it's like, when I heard, you told me that Jeff's channel was at risk because of the fact that...
He has 2 strikes.
Right, he had 2 strikes on his channel. My first thought was, because you were like, you were kind of like, ha ha, and,
oh, no, I wasn't, like, that much like that, but I kind of was like, oh, isn't it, look at Jeff is, bitching online.
But I was like, oh fuck, you know, because these things, they happen in waves, you know, like sometimes
it means there's been effort made to, you know, enforce copyright.
I mean, I don't know if were they both for Demon Slayer videos?
One was for I don't know.
Because the thing is that there's really different types of copyright strikes. There's the ones that it's like they swept through and struck everything, which is usually more you'll get your video taken down but not a copyright strike is more likely. Or there's that the company themselves, like somebody who they've hired to take down footage of their shows, has come and taken your videos down. Or possibly the studio themselves. Like Studio Kara or Studio Ghibli, they'll fucking police the shit out of their content, you know? You best keep them clips under 10 seconds long if you're using a goddamn Ghibli, you know?
Yes.
And that includes the like Ghibli museum stuff, you know, like the obscure shit that you can't even find online. Even that is in the database. But yeah, like if he got taken down as like just an isolated incident, then it's not a worry to me, you know. But if it was like, oh, you know, a bunch of stuff got flagged all over YouTube, I'm like, no, not this again. Because every time it happens, there's a huge risk of your channel going down if you get 3 strikes at once, you know? And I've been extremely lucky that I never got 3 at once. Like, Monkey's gotten 3 takedowns at once plenty of times.
Taken down for a bit?
Yeah, but it wasn't 3 at once. It was...
Okay.
Because I always had time to appeal before the 3rd one came.
Yeah.
I think. Maybe there was I don't remember what happened the last time.
I think in his case, like, he didn't have an ability to even appeal one of the strikes.
How is that possible?
I don't know. There was some fuck shit going on with it.
I mean, appeals can also be... I think appeals can now be rejected, which didn't used to be a thing you could do, because it meant that you had to sue them, like the content creator. So, although they've always been able to reject appeals to community guideline strikes, which those can be easily faked. And, you know, I've had community guideline strikes of videos that had fucking literally no objectionable content in them.
The cracker video.
That one, I mean, that one I could even understand.
No, I know.
But the fucking, there was one JoJo video I made way back, and not one of my controversial JoJo videos. It was the one video where I was praising JoJo all the way through.
Moral of the story, never praise JoJo.
Yeah, no. It was, because it was back in 2014... I did my top 20 anime of 2014 videos, where I did a video every single day for the last 20 days of the year on each of my top 20 shows of the year. And I think number 17 on my list was Stardust Crusaders. And, you know, this was at the time when JoJo was, like, getting big, but it wasn't, like, unbelievably fucking huge yet. That would probably come around, like, Stardust Crusader Season 2 airing. I think it hit, like it was already big, but it was just kept growing, you know? Mm-hmm. But, like, I don't really know why. Like, it wasn't even like the video got a ton of views or anything, you know? And there wasn't, like, a ton of negative comments. There wasn't a ton of dislikes or anything. I don't know if somebody was just offended that I ranked it that lowly on the top 20, you know? But whatever the case may be, it got a community guideline strike. And I was just like, how? Like, how did this go through? I got that one lifted. But I've had others that I couldn't get lifted. Like the Ask Princess Molestia video that I did. Which had no pornographic content in it whatsoever. It was just a discussion of a comic that has, like, racy content in it. But this fucking bitch took it down. And I know who did it, but you know, I lost the suit against YouTube, and I lost the one on Food, Sex, and Life in Kofuku Graffiti, which had no objectionable content in it at all.
Besides the word sex.
Yeah, just the fact that the word sex was in the title is what got that video taken down. Because, I mean, okay, the idea of the show, essentially, is that the girls eat food in erotic-looking ways, but not, like, sexually erotic. It just is like they themselves are getting off on eating the food, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, it's not necessarily that they're explicitly, like, sucking a cock when they eat the food. It's just that they look like they're having an orgasm from eating the food because the food tastes so good. But it's like, it's only somewhat sexual, and it's more of, like, comedic than sexual, you know? Like, it feels like it's meant to be a joke in the context of the show. And my video was just this, like, really bizarre, it was a shitpost video, essentially. Like, I've had a few of what I call analytical shitposts, like my No Kome and Nihilism video, or this Food, Sex, and Life one. But the whole idea was that I was talking about, like, the connection between, like, how, like, sex and death are the drivers of humanity, and, like, life, like, if death is bad, then life is good, and life is connected to food, and because food is life, and therefore food is sex. It was some shit like that. It was really fucking ridiculous, but it had no sexual content, and it got a guideline strike, and it stayed down, and I could not get it back. And it's just like, when something like that happens, you just go, okay, the rules are way too opaque, and there's nothing I can do about it. You know? So I just have to understand that if I post anything even remotely edgy, in spite of the fact that there is tons of way more egregious shit with millions of views on the platform,
right,
I still have to labor under the assumption that I might get taken down because somebody filed a community guideline strike, and YouTube did not think that this video was acceptable, and nobody had done that for those other videos, I guess. That, or they had so many views that YouTube overlooked it. I don't know which is more likely, but
both. It's interesting because this is going to be like probably one of the most like anti-free speech takes that I could have. It's just like, you know, having that kind of framework and insider knowledge of how the algorithm and like what gets taken down and what is acceptable content on YouTube. It's just like a lot of people are crying like foul play, like when their edgy political opinions get taken off.
Right.
And I just think it like weakens the cause of like, you know, of just like them. Just their existence, like when it becomes so much so like, oh, all conservatives are getting their shit taken down. It just kind of like is a poor reflection on those communities.
Yeah,
like even though I do agree that like, you know, YouTube should allow more things to exist on the platform. It's just kind of like, I don't know, it just speaks for what the purpose of YouTube is, and like every kind of content creator has to deal with these things.
Right.
And like, yeah, like YouTube does probably favor like more liberal content. They're in Silicon Valley, like that's obvious.
Right.
So it's just kind of like you should expect your shit to go down if it's objectable at all.
I mean, yeah, the companies are just gonna do whatever works for them. Like, I mean,
and they're gonna favor the people who make them more money.
Like, I think that the unfortunate thing is that YouTube is like an unparalleled platform for content uploading. And they have such a good system of monetization that to use anything else would be really foolish. However...
I mean, it's a trap.
Exactly. And it's not that it has to be this way, because there are alternatives that can work.
Yeah, but they're just not going to pay you. It's not the same payment platform.
Right.
People aren't... You're not going to have the same types of advertisers coming to the platform.
It's in my mind, if you're relying on the teats of the corporations,
yeah, you're just as bad as the corporations.
You're playing the corporate game, dude. You're in there. Like, where is your ad money coming from? Do you think that those companies are good? You know, like, do you think that they're okay? Let's say that you're making a video about gaming, right? There's a Blizzard ad on your guy. You're getting paid by them. They don't protect your free speech because they'll kick you off their platform if you protest the Hong Kong takeover in China. So you're taking money from a company that would disavow you if you were to make political statements that would hurt their bottom line. That is something that I don't mind taking those people's money, but I would never, you know, expect for the system to protect my free speech when I'm being paid by people who don't protect free speech.
I mean, yeah, you know? I mean, free speech, there is no free speech on a corporate platform.
Right.
It doesn't exist. It's corporate speech.
Right, and like the corporations can make their own decisions about what they're going to allow people to say. Some will be more open than others, but Google is not one that wants you to be able to say whatever you want to say.
The government could like implement, you know, some kind of expectation of free speech by saying that this is the largest platform. There is no feasible way a competitor can ever have the server capacities that YouTube does, so we need YouTube to protect its employees and let them post things because YouTube is a recognized platform all over the world and is used for political speech and all sorts of things. But that's not going to happen. Fucking government doesn't understand how Google works. So...
No, the government whenever okay, God, there was another one. There was I was ranting about the boomers not understanding the Google CEO on like the last episode, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it happened again because this time Mark Zuckerberg got to talk to what was it, Congress?
Yeah, it was Congress. He talked to AOC and
about his cryptocurrency. Like they bring him in because they're concerned about the fact that Facebook has a cryptocurrency. But the concerns that they address to him are, well, how many Latino people are working on your program? Out of the 24 people who are in charge of this project, how many African Americans are working on the project? And every single time they ask, he asks them 5 different ways, and Mark Zuckerberg says, "Sir, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head who all these people are. Like, I couldn't tell you how many people of each race there are."
Yeah, does this have to do at all with the crypto?
I mean, you could look at it and say, hey, maybe it's all white guys and he didn't want to admit it, But, I really think that he probably doesn't know off the top of his head the exact racial...
What does that have to do with...
It has nothing to do with anything. That's why it's so embarrassing and bizarre.
Yeah. And also
because the scene goes on forever of this guy asking him one after another, does this racial denomination work on your crypto team? What is that? Is that what you're worried about with the crypto thing? That's not why he's here, right? He did ask that. And I'm like... Is that what what is going on? Like, is this just, are you trying to just trap him in something?
No,
like,
definitely. That's exactly what it was. Is it just we want to
shut down the crypto, so let's find some reason?
Well, it's, okay,
like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Mark Zuckerberg has reportedly had a lot of, closed door and meetings with conservative politicians, I guess. For whatever reason. So, they're trying to get him on the idea that his platform is promoting conservative think pieces and
I mean, look,
discrediting their campaigns and stuff.
Do you want to know why he's doing that? Probably because Google is doing the opposite, and he wants to compete with them.
I mean,
and he is a robot man.
I think if he's a politician, it'd be not a politician, but if he has a platform, it'd be in his interest to meet with both, right?
Yeah.
To have politicians
that's what he said.
on his
side. Like, I meet with people on on both sides, but I don't know if I doubt that he was pumping up the conservatism of Facebook and what it was going to push.
Even if he was, who cares? They let them do it on the other side.
It's obvious that his reasoning would be that he felt that was the other market to corner, or just the more popular opinion, just because we have a fucking Republican president right now, ostensibly a greater than 50% of America is more into him.
Yeah.
In spite of the fact that it would not come off that way if you're on the other social media side.
So it'd be in your best interest to maybe understand that there are people who do favor these policies.
I mean, it's hard for me to really completely know what's going on in the bigger scope, because of the fact that Twitter, it pushes things to you based on what you follow. So I follow a lot of I follow Andrew Yang, and therefore all of my recommended is just other Democratic candidates or AOC. Even before I followed Yang, AOC was in there all the fucking time, right? Twitter really wants me to follow AOC.
Dude, Twitter really wants me to follow Asher.
I
don't know why, but he's always in there.
You probably follow all the same people.
My bad, she.
Anyway.
Love you, Asher.
Why?
Don't comment on my Twitter ever again.
So, anyway, fucking, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Twitter wants me to follow AOC. They constantly push, the hashtags that I see at the top of the page are always anti-Trump hashtags.
I mean, that's for anybody.
It's
always going to be anti-Trump.
I don't know how true that is, because I know I follow way more liberal shit than I do conservative shit.
I follow way more conservative shit than I do liberal shit. Granted, I do follow a fair amount of liberal shit. I only see liberal hashtags.
Well, if that's the case, then I mean that's just what Twitter is.
They're way more promoted. Yeah.
If you are following nothing but
again, I'm not following only those things. Yeah, well, I mean, I do follow.
But you don't follow Jordan Peterson or Stefan Molyneux or something that would really put a lot of conservative.
But I do follow Trump.
Yeah, but you follow mostly people on YouTube who are more. No,
I follow a good mix of both, and I don't subscribe to either. But, I would say that I lean more to the right, and I would probably be targeted more if the algorithm was, applied fairly and evenly.
Right.
But like, just think that Twitter is a platform that tends to maybe not even promote is the right word, just like attract a lot of like, you know, of specific groups. And like, it is very clear if you look at the trends and what is listed as like popular hashtags on your feed that like Twitter does have a hand in displaying that. Like, they will remove hashtags they don't like the Epstein. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like, they removed like a lot of Epstein hashtags when that happened. Like, they definitely do remove hashtags. And, you know, sometimes you'll see a hashtag that's promoted number 1 on like the top hashtag and it doesn't have a hashtag count because they don't want you to know what the count is because it's completely manufactured. It's artificially placed at the top. Yeah, I don't think you can get a good read of what's actually going on from Twitter at all, is my point.
Well, we should escape this political discussion. There was another edgy, controversial topic I wanted to talk
Asterios.
about. Oh, God, I forgot about that. Was I still talking about the drama tightrope thing?
I don't know.
Yeah, I wanted to go more in on that. Okay, so what I was trying to say with that before is that I'm involved in internet dramas that are ongoing because of the people who are involved with them keep getting into other drama that may or may not involve me on different levels, right? Now look, if anybody tries to start anything with me, I'm going to tackle it very openly on my Twitter, on my podcasts, not that likely like as main channel videos because why? You know, but I have made really high profile After Dark videos responding to drama. Like, one of the biggest videos on the After Dark channel is the For Never World one, where I fucking just shit on him like a fucking break down his throat, you know, Barack Obama, not Tommy C, what's the fucking guy, Turkey Tom.
Oh boy.
Like, all those guys, they tried to start direct drama with me, and I fucking blew them the fuck out, you know? And there are other people who try to start drama with me that I don't respond to because I am just not as interested in it, you know? Where I feel like it's too retarded, you know, to be, like, worth addressing, and people aren't listening to it anyways. It's not like a...
You don't want to make it seem like that's all you do is start fights with these people.
Yeah, and I also don't want them to get even more viewership from me talking about them, and that just encourages them to go further, especially if they're clearly just trolls, you know?
Right.
I'll call them out if I feel like I can really make a case against them, you know, and, like, really kind of turn the tables on it, you know? But nonetheless, it's like, yeah, I don't really want to make drama, like, a huge part of my brand. It's more of like a fun and sillier thing that's there for the kind of people who enjoy it. But there's also a lot of people who really don't like it. And especially if I talk about people that they like, which when I did the shit talking anime YouTubers thing, that was a way more controversial drama, you know?
Right.
Like, me getting into drama with For Never World, it's not controversial. Me talking shit about that anime snob, that's just purely for fun. Nobody is going to complain about that, you know? But, like, me shit talking people like Gigic, who've done nothing wrong and were not involved in any way, just because I didn't like a video he had made, that's going to piss a lot more people off, you know, and not necessarily have them be on my side. But, like, it was all in good fun, and it made great returns for everybody, you know?
Right, you have to be very strategic about when you jump into drama.
And about how you deal with it afterwards, where, like,
right.
I may have been very, like, harsh with how I phrased it, but I was just criticizing their content, not their character necessarily, except maybe Jeff. And I've criticized his character in other ways, but I think a lot of people criticize his character.
I mean, you've met him in person and have had a relationship with him, like...
Right, and, like, I
have something to talk about his character.
You know, disagreements of lifestyle, I guess, with him, but
and
also,
you know... you have, unfortunately, a mudslinging wife.
That, too.
It's a problem.
But, like, but the
I've
drama,
been working on it.
The drama that is much more, like, prominent and, like, lasting and deep-seated is the drama that you have with people who you used to work with. Because there is an expectation in your fan base. They had some kind of emotional connection to your friendship, basically. Because a huge part of what YouTube is friendship simulation, especially if you're listening to podcasts where there's multiple people. You know, this is why shows like Come Town make the big bucks, you know?
The real big bucks. How much do they make?
$50,000 a month is how much Come Town makes on Patreon.
Between two guys? Like, who's
I
making
don't know
money?
how many guys there are in Come Town. There's a few.
That's a lot of money.
But it's a podcast that they just, like, shit out, you know?
Yeah.
They just hang out and talk for a little while, and for some reason, a lot of people think it's funny as shit. I think it's okay. I really thought they were, like, a lot younger and less professional than they are because of the quality of the podcast when I heard it. But people seem to really fucking like it.
People throw down.
And apparently they have some connection to the Young Turks, which is like the biggest Patreon there is. And that's like a huge leftist fucking political podcast, I think.
Political, like, network, almost.
Wait, who did I say?
The Young Turks.
No, that's not what I meant. Not them. That's the YouTube guys.
Yeah, I was like,
the biggest podcasting one is the other one. Fuck, what are they called? Do you remember?
Oh my god. I know what you're talking about, but I
Chapo Trap House.
Yeah.
That's what they're called. Sorry, not the Young Turks.
I've never heard of it.
There's a bunch of
you
people
told
deleting
me.
their comments right now.
Oh boy.
No, it's not the Young. Yeah, no. Chapo Trap House is the biggest Patreon of all time, and they have some kind of connection to Come Town. They both make a heart-stopping amount of money for doing this, essentially, but being funnier than I am, you know? Which, you know, I can't...
We're just talking about things that most people could care about.
Yeah, maybe they're just less autistic. You know?
I think that might be the case.
The Dick Show is certainly less autistic, but still very autistic. It's autism pandering.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, entrenched in autism, but,
yeah. I would say Dick is probably only, like, a level 1 or... Probably just level 1 autist. I don't even think he's really past level 1. Maybe a little close to level 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I know because, like, a lot of his charisma is, like, it seems too good to be true. It seems a little manufactured, like maybe he had to work on it. But I think, you know...
I mean, he's been, like, charismatic since he was in high school, though. Like,
yeah, no, I believe
he was,
that.
like, a drama kid kind of guy. Like, he did morning radio announcements at the school
way
and shit.
The way that he's charismatic makes me think that he's, like, he has a rhythm or a structure to it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that maybe comes 100% naturally, which is why it's, like, so impressive. But I would say that I would put him on the autism chart, but probably not over level 2.
Yeah.
But, like, I definitely
level 2
think
is the most I would put him at. But, like...
Yeah, like, I'd say, like, 1 is probably accurate.
And that's... I mean, I consider that to be one of the reasons that I struggle on his show. Here's something I didn't touch on in my autism levels chart at all. And maybe I'll probably even talk about this again, and you'll hear about it sooner than this episode comes out. But, like...
You need to make a peer-reviewed, like, journal article about it.
Oh, dude, I could go on about the levels forever. The amount of thought I've put into it. But another part of it is just the sheer length at which somebody will talk about something is a very, very easy indicator of their autism level. So there was one person in my Discord who was upset with my autism tier list, who was an autistic person who was just like kind of, you don't know what you're talking about. But his main contention was my use of the word obsession, that people were obsessed with things, and therefore they go like super in depth about them. But he was saying that it's less that you are obsessed with it because you care about it, and more that you are capable of understanding it, and therefore it's something you can talk about, so you'll go on and on about it, regardless of whether it's really particularly something you like. And to me, that doesn't really mean something different than obsession, because I don't think the word obsession necessarily implies that you like something. You can be obsessed with something in a negative way, Oh,
yeah.
But, like... I thought it was interesting that he said that, because I consider how long somebody will go on about something to be a pretty easy indicator of autism level, And, like, as somebody who constantly is fielding messages from autistic people, I can tell you it is a 1-to-1 correlation, length of message and autism level. Read the comments on the autism video. You will see a lot of comments that say, Level 2 autists represent, and then other comments that are like, level 4 or 5 autist here, and then 3 paragraphs describing how autistic they are, by way of my scale. It's a story that tells itself, people. I know what I'm talking about here. That's why I feel so confident in my ability to create charts like this, because I'm surrounded by all these different tiers all the time. You know, I was in the My Little Pony community and the anime community, and both of those can appeal to people all the way down the spectrum, from top to bottom. You know, and I would say that's even one of the most, like, probably what made My Little Pony such a phenomenon was its ability to just spike straight down. Because even at level 1, it's a funny meme, you know? At level 7, it is like you're escaped into universe that your child mind has regressed into, and you believe you are in Ponyville, you know? So, like, yeah, not that autism is normally that extreme. That might be more of a different mental condition. But
I
you
mean,
know what I'm talking about.
yeah, it's like I wouldn't necessarily say somebody who behaves that way. It's like it's only the autism.
No, I think
it's like you probably have more
than
that. But you know, it does manifest itself like within those communities. You can clearly see like. So there's different levels, there's different stratifications, especially when you get to like brony celebrities, people who are able to take their like fame from the brony community and transfer over, versus people who are still going to BronyCon and like still obsessed.
Right.
It's just interesting. I mean, I have things that I disagree with you about on the autism chart, but like I do think.
What do you disagree with me about?
Just like. Certain I mean like disagree. I've pretty much talked to you about like most of my problems with it.
Like what? I don't remember that.
What
problems do you have with it?
I mean, we like worked to refine it. Like I mean, I've already pretty much told you like personally what my problems are with it, but like I do think that you can expect people to be upset, rightfully so, that you are using a medical term in this way.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I do think that you have points in doing so, especially in the fact that like autism is not something that we clearly understand.
Right.
And I think that it can even be empowering to autistic people to like to own it in that way and then be able to relate to others, cuz like
and to understand like it's not that I like dumb bad shit. I just like this stuff because it fits my brain style,
right.
You know?
Like at the end of the day, like the condition of autism has to do with like neuropathy, right?
I have no idea.
Is that the word for it? Neurology, which is something that media does not have, but like is certainly created by people, and is meant to fill a niche, and we can all, you know, interact and stuff, you know, based on our own needs and stuff. I do think there's lots of reasons why people will like a show, and you know, you address things as like you could have emotional connections with shows, which is why you like it, or just like the amount of depth it provides you with. One of the most interesting things I think that like you could have elaborated more on in your list is just talking about how like female autists are different.
Oh yeah, well, see, I want, you know, this whole 7 levels thing. It's open for this is for everybody. You know, somebody was joking on my server that I should trademark it and call it like the Conrad scale or something. And I was like, no, I want this to belong to everybody. I feel like this is an important contribution to humanity because I want you to expand on it. I want you to continually define it. If it turns out that all 7 layers are actually different mental conditions, I want each of them to be identified and to be codified and for us to actually have a name for them. Because like,
so is 0 what is it called? Dyslexia?
Neurotypical. Oh yeah, that. Okay, do you want me to get into that crackpot theory I have? Okay. So, here's the thing. If you count level 1 autism as, you know, autism, it would mean that there was a significant population of autists in the world. Like, if you were counting that, basically anybody who you would describe as a nerd, in any way, like anybody with those kind of like hobbyist interests, really, would be considered an autist at level 1. Which is why, like, it's, you know, I understand a frustration with this scale and the idea that literally isn't autism, like, by medical definition.
Yeah.
But it is an exhibition of the tendencies of autistic
Yeah, like,
people.
I knew lots of autistic people who were just obsessed with sports statistics.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. But, like, it's like, if you have, have a lot of categorical knowledge of things, and you're really interested in stuff on that level, most people aren't. But there's a significant portion of people who are just a little bit. But it's like the system of behavior they're exhibiting is the exact same system of behavior as autism, just on a way lesser scale.
Yeah, it's a spectrum disorder.
So that's why it makes sense to me to consider that just level 1 autism, which I would say comprises probably, like, I don't know, 20% of the population.
I would say more.
Maybe. I
would
really
say
don't
more,
know. Like, how many people ultimately... Because, when you hear
there's
about...
lots of people you can tell the symptoms of autism and, like, how it manifests. That'll be like, oh, that's, like... I can understand that. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I get, like, why a person might have trouble communicating with others and why they might think in different ways and might gravitate towards different things. And, like, they might even see that tendency in themselves. Like, I've showed tons of people, like, autism tests and stuff, and they, like, are like, oh my god, like, am I autistic? Like, I think the ability for somebody to self-diagnose themselves, like, a lot of people could do that.
Yeah.
Like, lots of people would be like, oh shit, like, I'm autistic if they knew. And, like, when I was in high school, there was, like, a weird meme where, like, everybody's like, oh, everybody's a little autistic. Like, everybody was a little gay.
Yeah.
And it's because my school had a very high, like, special needs, like... It had, like, special needs classes and stuff, so there was a lot of, like, autistic kids who were at my school. So, people are just, like, very curious about autism, and, like, the more, like, just the normal kids learned about it, like, the phrase, everybody's a little bit autistic, like, became, like...
I mean, look, don't even get me started on the fact that you and I... Like, this runs really deep for both of us, and especially since we've gotten together, for me, it's run even deeper. Because of the fact that...
Because we're both obsessed with autism.
Well, because... Okay, here's the thing. Neither of us was diagnosed with autism, but I believe both of us, our parents thought at some point in our upbringing that we were.
Like, multiple times.
We were tested for autism, but came up negative, but this was in the early 90s.
And in my case, like, it was very rare for women to be diagnosed because it manifests itself in very different ways. So, I don't know. I haven't been tested since then.
So just the fact
professionally.
The fact that we know from childhood that there was an early suspicion of the possibility that we were autistic really gets the noggin jogging, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, especially when it's now been classified as a spectrum disorder.
Right!
So, like, you could have very low levels of it, so, like, if it looks like you have it...
Why does it seem like I like all the same things that the autistic kids like?
Or why do I communicate better with these kids?
Why did I, growing up, not have any friends and get bullied, but on the internet I had an easy time making friends?
All the popular kids constantly asked me if I was autistic at school. Why did normies suspect that I had autism? Constantly.
Even though I wasn't diagnosed with it. Maybe it's because I'm exhibiting the same traits just on a less extreme scale. But meanwhile, when I hang out with those severely autistic kids, I'm like, okay, well, this is not who I am. You know? Like, I'm clearly not this autistic. So I understand why people are like, oh, that's what autism is, not whatever you have.
And I mean, like...
But it's like, that doesn't stop the fact that everybody else in society is calling me a fucking autist, you know?
Like, people can say, like, you know, autism starts where it becomes a disability, where it becomes, like, it's severely impacting your ability to have a normal life, is where you draw the line. But, like, I don't know, I think in the case of both of us, like, that line has been drawn.
Right.
Just because, like, it's harder to fit in society. And I don't know, like, I don't know where I saw, or I don't know if you told me this or something, but, like, the literal opposite of autism is dyslexia, and you can't have both conditions.
I think you told me this.
I might have told you this, but you can't have autism and dyslexia, so
We're about to get into some
going on with your neurology, and, like, I don't know how much research has been put out, but, like, I think, you know, you either are more dyslexic or are more autist or true neutral. Like,
I don't know. I don't know if it's so much as that everybody is one or the other, because I think they're both distinct things. But it is true that the literacy rates are so staggeringly low all over the world, including in America. Like, it's not because, okay, when we compare it to history, we think of it as very positive, because throughout human history, most people literally could not read at all. It was extremely rare for someone to know how to read for most of human history. It wasn't until, like, high society started to, like, involve people reading and writing books to be read within that society that there was, like, a huge growth of, reading and writing as, like, and the growing of abilities to print more copies of books and, like, distribute them better. Stuff like that made it so there was just way more writing and reading, but that doesn't mean it was trickling down to uneducated people, of which there were many, because public education didn't become commonplace until the Industrial Revolution, So, like, it's only in the last century that we've had it to be where, like, oh, most people can read, but most people can only read up to, like, a middle school reading level at the highest. Most people,
even though most people
in
America have been through all of high school.
Yes, even though they have already experienced high school, their literacy rate is below high school, and I know this is a fact because I went to high school and I saw the way it was. And look, I went to several different high schools. I went to 3 different high schools. All right, one I only went to for about a month, but it was in Chesterfield, Virginia, in a very, like, upscale kind of place, because it was a college town full of yuppie white people, right? It was weird, because I had never lived in a place that, like, kind of rich and white, But, like, my dad was in the car business for a very long time, our wealth level fluctuated, and usually we kind of ended up in neighborhoods that were, like, not the best neighborhood that goes to this school, but it might be a decent school, And that's kind of how it was here. The high school I was going to was, like, had a lot of money, and it had, like, good programs, and I was excited to go to it because it seemed like a really good and modern school, And I had a friend whose older brother was a senior who rode the bus with me, who was in, like, a video game development club, and he had, like, given me a bunch of JRPGs, like, rare, weird JRPGs, like Star Ocean 2 and fucking Breath of Fire 5, and he, like, I felt like I was going to become this guy's protege, because I wanted to get into game development as a kid, of course, I was 14, and starting school, they were assigning us books, and the first book they assigned, I think in the, like, 1.5 months I was there, however long, I managed to read 2 of their assigned books, because I thought they were both good. And I think it was both The Giver and 1984. Now, assigning 1984 to 9th graders is kind of an advanced reading program.
Yeah, I mean, my school did that, but again, I went to, like, an IB school, which is International Baccalaureate, so it was, like, high. Right. It was an advanced program.
But I loved 1984. I thought it was fucking badass because it was super dark and sci-fi and edgy and fucking about stuff that, that was relatable to me. So I thought it was cool. And I thought The Giver was cool too. They're both, like, sci-fi dystopian stories. Really interesting that both of those were given to us, like, right away in that class. Must just be the teacher's personal proclivities or something. But
just in New York State, it was like, that's what they did. I'm pretty sure everybody would read those books. Did you read The Giver as well? Yeah, I read The Giver in middle school.
For me,
I read it in, like, 7th grade.
It could have been middle school. I know I read fucking The Old Man and the Sea in middle school.
I read that book in 11th grade.
See, it's odd. Like, they're different everywhere. But, but let me tell you about the school that I transferred to. Because we moved straight from that yuppie school into the ghetto in Richmond. Like, my dad had quit his car business job and become an electrician apprentice. You know, he has 3 kids. So, to do this, your lifestyle has to significantly diminish, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But we were used to living broke in various situations. And I don't think that my dad had really thought about, like, what the schools we would be going to would be like, you know? Like, because from his perspective, he's just working as an electrician in this place. He's not, like, you know, he doesn't have to talk to anybody or, like, be social in this place outside of the people he works with, who are the only kind of people he really knows, you know? Is he really considering what it would be like if all of his kids went to schools whose district was primarily the ghetto, and they're all white kids? And this is Richmond, where the population is predominantly black. So we went to an all-black school. Like, I was one of, like, 5 white kids. And now, I've never had any trouble getting along with black kids who had been at all the schools I'd been to before. But when you're the only white kid at a school, nobody talks to you at all. Nobody fucking has any idea what you are. And especially because I was long-haired. Because, like, the other 4 or 5 white kids at the school all acted, you know, they acted the same as the black kids.
Yeah, they grew up in the same place. You grew up in a completely different place. It's
like, we're talking, there was one dude who came up to me one time. This was such a weird encounter because he comes to sit at my table and he's wearing, like, an oversized white t-shirt and, like, he had, like, you know, shaved head, like, just very short, like, you know, like, buzzed hair, kind of a fat guy. But he was a white dude, and he came to sit next to me in the cafeteria one time. Now, keep in mind, like, your mental image of me needs to be, I've got fucking mega long hair, you know, like, down past my shoulders, probably to, like, my mid-back, that I barely brush at all. So I look like a fucking mess. I've got kind of like a shitty goatee beard growing in, but it's patchy as fuck. And it doesn't grow in all the way, but I'm afraid to learn how to shave, so I haven't started shaving yet. Other kids my age are learning to shave. I just am terrified of razors. So I won't shave, so kids started calling me Joe Dirt. That was my nickname amongst some kids in some classes at this school, was Joe Dirt. You know, who himself is basically an autistic fucking man-child raised on the streets or whatever, you know, like, he's a Forrest Gump type character, you know, so like, that's like what the perception of me is, and I had no idea how to communicate with anybody, because just the culture was so incredibly different from what it had been where I was from. And this is a school where there was, like, a 1/3 graduation rate or something like that, where there were kids in the hallways selling CDs, DVDs, you know? It was like, and there was, like, a dress code where everybody had to keep their shirts tucked in to make sure they weren't carrying guns, you know? Like, there were kids in gangs. I sat next to a pregnant girl in 9th grade. In 9th grade, you know? So, like, this was, like, the real hood, you know, was where this school was stationed. But, like, and, I mean, granted, you know, nothing violent happened at the school while I went there that I know of, other than fights, you know, like regular fist fights. I don't think there was ever any gun violence at the school, because that's not really the kind of stuff that would happen at school. Those kids just wouldn't come to school, you know, which is why there was such a low graduation rate, because a lot of kids just joined gangs, you know. So, like, yeah, it was it just wasn't a place that I really fit in, you know. But this white guy comes up to me, and he sits at the table, and he goes, he's just, like, kind of, like, mumbling through some stuff. I don't really understand what he's saying, but at one point he's like, yeah, you know, we gotta stick together, like, us white dudes, you know? And I was like, okay, how can you be racist when you go to this school and you act exactly the same as everybody else here? How can you have the perspective of us white kids gotta stick together when you are vastly more similar to all of the black kids at the school than you are to me? That makes no fucking sense. And then I was just like, this is like why racial division is so promoted in our country, because like, and there's a lot of rappers who have talked about this, but like, you know, it's the monetary situation is the thing we have in common the most by far, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if you're poor, the poor experience is the same for everybody. There just happens to be more black people who are poor, and that's because of the fact that they've been, you know, put into that position. Like, and it's very difficult to escape being poor. If you're raised by poor people in a poor environment, it's very difficult to not end up there.
You're gonna get a poor education.
I recommend watching The Wire for more information. Because it's pretty much a show about, you know, this exact, and that's set in Maryland, which is not that far away from or different from Richmond, you know. I mean, there's a place where there was a fucking death on the news every day from the start of the year on, you know. And I know Rochester has some pretty fucking dangerous parts too. The part you're from is not necessarily that dangerous.
My brother was at prom, and there was like a shooting like across the street from the hotel his prom was at, or some shit.
Jesus.
But I mean, I didn't live like in the heart of Rochester, but it's very close. It's like you cross a street, and all of a sudden you're in downtown Rochester.
Right.
Like you can go from Greece, which is like, you know, mainly Italians and like German people, to like in the heart of Rochester, which is like not a great city. Mainly because it's like, you know, polluted as fuck. But my school did not have a lot of black kids or like any minorities, because it was a school of choice, and like you had to apply to get in, and if you were taking advanced classes, it was more likely that you got in. And like, yeah, there were kids of lots of different minorities and stuff there, but predominantly white, and like everybody behaved the same way because it was just school is the most important thing. But there were like poor kids and rich kids, and like my friend group had like people who were single family mom, barely affording to get by. Like the fucking utilities would go out to like kid who lives with their rich grandparents, like who lives in like in $1 million house.
My school was kind of like that, probably less, or
but we all behaved the same because we were all like autistic kids who had to stick together.
But like so when I went to that school, where I was going with all this is to talk about the literacy, because it was really funny, because at the school I had been going to before, we had been reading 1984, but at this school they were reading Animal Farm, which is from the same author, about the same thing, but is essentially a more simplified version of the story to be more understandable to more people, you know? So it was really odd for me going from 1984 to Animal Farm, you know, and being like,
It's usually the opposite. You usually read like, Animal Farm first.
I could, like, the work was also easier in general, and, like, I could easily outpace everybody in the class, you know? Like, no question, there's nobody who's... I can get an A without opening my eyes in this, you know? Like, it's dead easy. So then you know, eventually my parents moved. I went to a school in Virginia Beach that's just, like, very average, you know? Lower middle class people for the most part, you know? Or low, like, just poor people, you know? But it was not, like, a dangerous school or anything, you know? Like, even though we had, like, that kind of reputation, that it was like, oh, that was, like, the dangerous school, but that's just because, you know, there's a lot of preppy kids out there, you know? Who fucking just grew, like... Didn't you say that Michelle had lived, like, near Virginia Beach or something and heard that it was, like,
and she thought it was, like, ghetto. That's what she said.
Like, she had heard from, like, her friends that it was ghetto, right?
Yeah.
And, like, it's just really funny because there are people, like, I've met the kind of people who think that if there are a significant black population in a place, it is therefore ghetto. And that is a very racist mode of thinking.
Yeah.
Because there are some, like, there might be ghettos in Virginia Beach. That's because it's a major city and there's ghettos everywhere. But, like, as far as being a ghetto city goes, no. Virginia Beach is by no means ghetto at all. It is one of the safest cities in the world. It's fucking... There's police fucking crawling the streets, you know?
I feel very safe in Virginia Beach. Almost everywhere. Way safer than in Rochester.
Right. Rochester is way more run down and dangerous. And, I mean, it's a bigger city with a a bigger poor population, you know? Like, in Virginia Beach, if you're broke, you have to live in fucking Norfolk, you know? Like, if you go to Norfolk, you would say there's parts of it that are ghetto, you know?
Norfolk still looks nicer than Rochester.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, some parts are scary, but, like, I mean, they're not that. This just looks like any poor area. Like,
right. It's not, like, an especially, like...
I don't know, dude.
Well, Norfolk is one of the more dangerous cities in America, so, like, it is, it's up there with Rochester on the list.
Oh, yeah, no, it's just, like, that's
it just
my
doesn't
stomping
look
ground. Yeah, I mean, it just looks really nice. Like, some of the areas on the water just look really beautiful.
Virginia is a very green place.
Yeah, no, it's really funny, because, like, okay, coming from Boston, which is, like, just overwhelmingly gray and dull.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, you know, foggy, sea, mist everywhere. Like, this is where Stephen King's from. Like, he wrote The Mist, literally.
He's from Maine. He's from
No, he's from New England, though. It's like, you know, the mist is everywhere. Just is a scary place, even though it's like, you know, higher...
I guess that was a Boston.
High class, not really a lot of crime in the area we were in. Just, like, you know, it was kind of rural, actually, the area we were in. It just, like, didn't look as nice, as friendly.
You mean, it was pure suburban?
It was suburban, but it was, like, very blue-collar. Like, the area we lived in.
I mean, it was, like, overwhelmingly Asian as well.
No, I mean, yeah, the Asian parts of it, but, like, not all of it was Asian.
Yeah.
It was just very interesting, because, like, I've lived in lots of different places. I've never lived in a place that was, like, predominantly Asian, though. So it was just a really interesting experience. But, like, most of the places I live, like, high black population. But, they're not, like, it's not like it's difficult to talk to black people at all.
No. Well, that's why I was so weirded out by the guy who was like, we gotta stick together. And I'm like, bruh, like, I come from schools with way smaller black populations than you do, and I have had no trouble getting along with the black kids at those schools.
Right.
How can you be having trouble getting along with the black kids at this school, you know?
I mean,
maybe he was just trying to small talk. Maybe he just thought it would be funny. I have no idea.
And I mean, like, I think if you're, like, a minority where there's, like, only one person and there's, like, hundreds of other people, no matter what race you are, you're probably gonna feel a little uncomfortable, I guess. But, I don't know, like, when I worked at Kmart, I was, like, the only white person there, and, like, I didn't really feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I didn't feel like I needed to, like, buddy up with, like, the other white people.
I didn't really feel uncomfortable at the school. I just felt very alienated, because nobody would talk to me. And I tried to talk to, like, the kids who, because there were several classes where, you know, we had to, like, either share tables with other kids, like, for the same kids for the whole year, or, like, classes in which...
it's always going to be hard to be a new kid, and like if you have even more differences separating you from your peers, it's going to be even harder for you to integrate.
Yeah, story of my life.
Yeah.
But and I don't need to be the only white kid in school to have differences from all of my peers, you know. So like it was really like doubly effective. I had no integration whatsoever at this school, you know. And it was really depressing, and I was extremely depressed the whole time we lived there, and that's what got me onto the internet, you know, in a dangerous way. And I never escaped. But, I mean, granted, I'd been on the internet before that, but I have no idea where the fuck I'm going in this fucking level. It's fucking huge. The map is not that well laid out.
Why are we talking about this? We're talking about literacy rates.
Yes, well, just that even at the school that I went to after the black school... the you know, the literacy was still extremely low, because it was still like not a high end school or anything, and most kids just like sucked at English class. Now, when I went into 11th grade, I took a advanced placement English class for the first part of the semester, and even though I was very good at like the writing proportions, like understanding the reading, I would read the books very quickly. The class just had a fuckload of work, because that's how advanced placements classes are. It's not about how smart you are and how well you understand the material. It's about how much work you can do, you know? And I fucking would buckle under that. So
because like the point of it is to get you ready for college, where all you're going to be doing is working.
So even though like I would chew through the books really quick, I would do all my assignments, you know, I would write clever, interesting essays for the stuff. It was just so much fucking work that I was not doing well in the class, and I was really depressed being in there, and so I've told the story before of how I wrote a really edgy story and almost got expelled, but then the end result of it was just that I got to drop this class. But when I went back down to regular English, it was embarrassing how bad the people were at this, like how easy it was. I literally had an A in this class and I would sleep through it every class, and I was just like, but this is just because like people don't like to read. They really don't. People don't like doing it, and I don't think that en masse people have ever liked doing it. I think that there was a time when reading was one of the main ways that you could find entertainment, and so more people did it. But like, was I just meant to be leaving the level because I had already beaten the thing? Why didn't it just take me out of the level? What a fucking waste of time.
It's interesting, but like even to that extent, like a lot of fiction from those era were just not difficult reads. Like they were made to be more accessible when reading was like, when reading became a form of entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that like it's like we have more people reading and a higher literacy than ever before, but only because like everybody who will enjoy reading has been given access to it,
Or anybody that needs to communicate is going to be reading on their day-to-day life and writing, like.
But it's amazing how much a lot of people, like, the lengths they'll go to avoid reading as much as possible, and the just awful syntax and grammar of the writing of most people. And you can see it so easily just by going on Facebook and looking at people's fucking writing, And, like...
Even professionals.
Right. It's just really embarrassing how bad most people are at it, but then you think about it and you go, well... maybe it just doesn't come naturally to most people. Like, maybe most people just really can't parse the letters that easily. I had this
experience, because we had to, for one of my homework assignments, post, like, a example of our writing, and then critique, like, another student's writing. And I was, like, I spent, like, 20 minutes just, like, going through all the other students and just, like, reading and seeing what level they were at. And it's just, like, wow, like, things that these students would consider a paper they put a lot of like effort into, like just don't hold up and are just riddled with like syntax errors and just poorly phrased.
Okay, I'm gonna make
But these are college level students, like.
I'm gonna make a really bold jump here and what I think is the solution to this. I think the problem is that people think in very different ways. Everybody does. Mm-hmm. And we can all express ourselves through what we're uniquely adept at understanding and communicating. I think that everybody being given the opportunity to be able to read is very important. Like, we should definitely be teaching kids as much to read as possible on the off chance that they are somebody who's going to end up being a reader, because we need readers to run our society, essentially.
Yeah.
But...
well, if you're going to be making decisions for society, you best be able to consume information telling you the status of society.
Oh, yeah. Reading, major fucking factor in our society at present. I think that there needs to be more... like, I mean, they try to basically identify if you're a reader when you're a kid and put you in advanced placement classes. But the problem is that those classes they're structured around the same understanding of knowledge as like the math classes, you know? It's not, there's just so many different modes of expression that people can have and different modes of understanding and like ways of learning. And unless it's very personalized, it's just never going to be optimized,
Yeah.
Like, and I think that ultimately we come to a point where we're wasting a lot of fucking people's time and not encouraging them to go down the paths that they would be best suited to go down, Like, there's lots of people who probably have something very different to contribute than what they have ever even thought of themselves as being able to, because an opportunity was never put in front of them to even test that ability,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest reasons that in the black community, one of the, the more prominently visible ways that people do escape from poverty and living in the ghetto is through music, through becoming a rapper or musician, and it's so optical to all those kids because it's something that is put right in front of you. You already know how it works because it describes how it works in the music itself. And the big corporations who are trying to make money off of you by getting you to listen to this stuff and spend money on it, those people they have every incentive to just push this message into every fucking possible community. And the rappers take advantage of that by telling stories to other people in those communities about how they got out to try to encourage you to try to find your own way out. But the way they did it is by rapping. So that's the code book they have that they can give you. But very few people are going to be successful at it because there is, at the very, the highest levels of, monetized culture, it's less about having as many diverse voices as possible as picking certain ones and pumping them up to unbelievable heights, It's not about low risk, low reward ventures. It's about taking one guy and putting everything behind him, and writing it for as long as you can and then moving on as quickly as possible. Not so much about cultivating, whole artistic communities and large numbers of underground artists. Those people develop their own communities to support each other just out of the love of the craft. And then eventually some of them might also, get accepted into more mainstream culture through record deals and stuff like that, But, that's one escape route that exists and is visible. And, all these different avenues of fame and art, mostly people find out about it because they just learn how to do it through the communities themselves and through observing other people who have done it, because the schools don't even offer this as, an avenue. Because it's so hard to quantify this type of thinking and this type of creativity and these kinds of abilities that the rigid structure of a one-size-fits-all schooling system doesn't account for.
And often to pursue, these outside and different ways to be successful require you to take time and energy away from school. So, if you're trying to pursue a rap career, and you get signed, you might never finish high school.
Oh, and a lot of them don't, you know? Denzel Curry was one of the few people who did, because his older brother had encouraged him to finish high school, and he had gotten killed. So, he did it in memory of that and, kind of put his career on hold for a little while. And, it caused it to take a lot longer for him to blow up as big as he has now. Because of the fact that momentum was kind of halted, Mm-hmm. And, there are plenty of other artists who just don't wait. Lil Yachty, I don't think he finished high school. Maybe he did, I don't know. But, I think he was pretty young.
Versus somebody like Jaden Smith, who you sure just has private tutors and probably doesn't go to a real school.
No, I doubt it. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I don't remember why we're talking about that anymore.
Dyslexia.
Oh yeah, just my theory that perhaps only autistic people can read. That's where this was all building to. That's where I was going with this.
When you say read, you mean at an advanced
at a level
right?
where they enjoy it.
Yeah.
Where they do, and it, obviously this is a real stretch. But I just thought it would be a funny theory because the idea that dyslexia and autism are the opposites, and that maybe being neurotypical basically is being dyslexic, since most people hate reading.
So you think about it, libraries are organized completely by an autistic database structure.
Oh
the
Dewey Decimal System is pure autism.
Yeah, so it's just I do think that if you go to the library,
what is literally the number one thing
autistic.
Correlated with autistic characters? It's having a fucking book in their hand. You watch any show ever in all time, the bookish fucking girl is the quiet one who fucking doesn't know how to communicate. That is the most traditional archetype of autism that exists in culture. So, I'm just saying,
I'm sorry.
Only autistic people read. That's where we were going with this whole time. Should we call it here? Because there's another topic I wanted to get into, but it could take just as fucking long as the other shit.
We're an hour and a half in.
I can do it
and
anytime.
I gotta pee.
Alright, everybody. I guess I'm just gonna stop in the middle of this level because I fucking have just been I didn't even think about trying to play levels that would progress the story. I just randomly picked levels this whole episode.
That's really funny.
Hopefully it wasn't too intolerant to the people who actually do watch it. Hopefully. At least I switched off the beef edge finally, guys. I just thought it was so funny. I couldn't stop using it.
Where the beefu?
All right. That's it.